Hello, my name is Vamsi Kemptiganti. I am a middleware solutions architect with Red Hat. And in my day-to-day job responsibilities, I work with Red Hat's customers across a variety of industry verticals and geographical regions. I help customers apply JBoss technologies to solving their business problems or achieve their application goals. JBoss Transaction Service, or JBoss TS, is a default distributed transaction subsystem with JBoss Application Server. And not just with JBoss, but with a wide variety of other containers or standalone. It has been deployed in both configurations. And the main goal is that it is a transaction subsystem that preserves transactional integrity in your Java applications, regardless of the deployment topology or the kind of resources that you're interacting with and trying to keep transactional integrity with. So be they databases or message queues or custom application components. So the demo we have here is an application that's running on JBoss Enterprise Application Platform, or EAP 5.0.1. And it's a Java application that uses a stateless session bean to trigger a transaction across two resources, two relational databases that are running on two systems or two servers. And what I'm going to demonstrate to you is that once the transaction is started, even though one could do disruptive actions like pull the cable out, which I'm going to do, and then reinsert the cable on one or both of the databases, JBoss, the application server itself, keeps trucking along with constant high throughput. And secondly, once the databases come back online, JBoss Transaction Service syncs up the data in both databases, resulting in no loss of data for the application. What we have here is an example that showcases the power of JBoss transactions. I have three laptops here. The first one running JBoss EAP 5.0.1, along with an application that uses JBoss TS to trigger a transaction across two databases running on these two other laptops. And you'll notice that during the course of the demo, irrespective of what actions one does in terms of causing the transaction to be disrupted, like yanking a cable and then putting it back in and repeating the same with the other machine, so on and so forth, in whatever combination, you'll see that JBoss EAP does two things. The first one is that it keeps trucking along at a constant throughput. And number two, when the cables are both put back on at any point in time, JBoss transaction syncs up the state in both databases and recovers the transaction to keep the integrity of the data in both the systems. And we have posted the source code for the example with documentation and the test cases on jboss.org. And along with that, you'll find extensive documentation on JBoss Transaction Service, code samples, and tutorials that can definitely help you get started with JBoss TS. We recommend developers look at this example, deploy it, and also extend it. And if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them on the JBoss forums. So you'll notice that on this computer, I have two screens open. The first one is a JBoss EAP 5.0.1 instance. I've started. And on this other screen, I have an AND script that basically starts the test and triggers the application and deploys the application, which starts inserting data in those two databases. So I'm going to go ahead and start the AND script. And there is an XML file that the AND script outputs to disk, where you can look at how many rows were inserted, so on and so forth. And now I go to database 1, and I see that there are currently about 3,000 rows inserted. And our goal is to insert about 80,000 rows during the course of this test in both databases. And at any point of time, if you click on the SQL viewer, you'll see that both the databases are in sync with the same number of rows in both tables. And what I'm going to do now is disrupt the transaction by yanking the cable, network cable, off of the first laptop. And you'll see what happens is on the second still connected database, the transaction basically stops. It doesn't insert any, JBoss does not insert any more data in there. Now I'm going to put the cable back on. And you'll see that when I run the query, both the count in both databases syncs up. And you can see this in the screencast, but you'll see that both of them show the same row count. And I'm going to again get a little disruptive here and plug off the cable on my laptop that is running the second Oracle database. And you'll see that the same happens. JBoss basically stops inserting new rows onto that table, and you'll see that there's no disruption in the application server console. It's still going along, serving any other applications that you've hosted on JBoss. Now I'll reinsert the cable back on the second Oracle database. When I check to see how many rows there are, what the count is, you'll see that the count has started again, and they both are not only synced up, but JBoss is continuing the transaction. And you can repeat this any number of times you wish in any order. You'll see that the action is the same, it's constant. JBoss maintains transactional integrity across both data sources, and also does not show you any lack or drop in performance in the main application server console itself. So there's a wide list of features, too long to enumerate here, but the two main ones would be, number one, it preserves overall system integrity regardless of the deployment topology across databases, message queues, and custom application components. And the second feature is, over the last few years, we've been using it to drive standards and to support some of the emerging transaction standards in the web services space. Things like WS Atomic Activity, WS Coordination, so on and so forth. So we've proven two things to you today in the course of the demo. The first thing is that irrespective of what happens due to external disruption in the transaction, JBoss application server keeps trucking along and maintains constant throughput. Secondly, JBoss Transaction Service works to ensure data integrity by syncing up both databases. We've posted the source code, the test cases, and the documentation pertaining to this example out in jboss.org. So your developers or architects can go out there and look at the examples and maybe use them as a starting point and to come up with more complicated scenarios where you might want to test failover in JBoss. As always, if you're an enterprise customer, we'd be glad to work with you on any questions you may have. The last thing to add is that on jboss.org, you can go to the JBoss TS subpages, look at extensive examples, documentation, and tutorials pertaining to JBoss TS. And we hope you can use them and this example to leverage the power of JBoss TS in your business applications. Thank you.